Okay, everybody, it is time for another This Week in Appalachian History. It's actually past time for another This Week in Appalachian History. I had some camera problems and all kinds of setbacks this week, but the show must go on, and I will let nothing stop me. I'm like the U.S. Mail. It might be later than heck, but dadgummit, I'll get it out of here. But we'll start off with thanking a few donors that came in this week. And first of all, a man named Brandon Parrott, who joined us as a patron. Thank you so much this week. I got a nice tweet from him on Twitter, and very complimentary, and I really appreciate that. I'm glad you enjoy the videos, and we really appreciate your financial support. Also got a PayPal donation from Patti Dibble, so thank you so much, Patti. And then I got, and Patti's a repeat offender, by the way. Offender's not the word. She is a repeat donor. That's the word. She was committing crimes. She'd be going away for a while, but fortunately she's doing good work, so I'm not sure what that gets you, but a blessing in heaven, I guess. And also got another anonymous donation this week from someone who requested again to be anonymous, and I'd like to show the card and just read a little of the letter that I got in the mail. It'll always make my day so much. It says, Shane and Melody, thanks you two. Y'all seem to blend together like you think the same way. That's pretty close, actually. We think a lot of things the same way, so but we got enough contrast to make it interesting too, and we don't care to put each other back in place when we need to as well. So she'll smart off to me, and I'll smart off to her, or whatever needs to be done to get on down the road. I pray God will bless you always. As always, I enjoy your videos. Love seeing your beautiful daughter. And says remember, shh. Okay. Mom's the word. But give us a Cracker Barrel gift card, man, and that's awesome, because believe me, that will be put to good use, and very, very soon. One of my favorite places, and I've actually got one just literally like a mile down the road from my house, so perfect for me. So thank you so much, and thank you all. Thank you, Brandon, Patty, and Anonymous, for your donations. We really appreciate it. Okay, so we'll start with August 16th. This is take number 8 or 9. I don't know what's happened today. I think I may have had just a little too much sugar in my lemonade from Dunkin' Donuts. That's my only suspicion, but I am not on my game right now. But maybe that sugar will kick in, or kick back out, or whatever it's doing to me. August 16th, 1885, in Logan County, West Virginia, a man was born by the name of Blind Ed Haley. He was a blind musician and composer known for his fiddle playing. He contracted measles when he was 3 years old, and that actually ended up costing him his sight. So then he applied his talent to the musical field and became quite the accomplished fiddle player. So he started working through the Ghyontonda and Big Sandy areas, and his legend grew. He ended up expanding into Ohio, eastern Kentucky, southwest Virginia, and in addition to southern West Virginia. And he became very respected in the fiddle field. In fact, after his death, he continued to influence a lot of musicians that came after him. So, and in his life, he ended up marrying a blind piano teacher. So, I guess it was the blind leading the blind in that one. I don't know how else to put that, but so they ended up getting married. He passed away in 1951, but like I said, his legend grew even after his death, and he was inducted into the West Virginia Music Hall of Fame in 2015. And also, Smithsonian Magazine did a feature story on him in the year 2000. That is the story of Blind Ed Haley, and I made it through here. Oh my God. We might get through this after all. And like I said, you'll never see the first 7. They'll end up on the cutting room floor. Now, on August 17th, 1929, Francis Gary Powers was born in Jenkins, Kentucky. Although he was primarily raised in Pound, Virginia, he was a pilot of a U-2 spy plane, and he was shot down by the Soviet Union during the Cold War. Initially, the United States claimed it was a stray weather plane that got shot down, so they kind of tried to hide the fact that it was a spy plane. Little did the U.S. know at that time that the plane had actually landed pretty much intact, and the pilot was safe and sound too, so they assumed that the plane was demolished and that the pilot was dead. So the Russians kind of hid this whole story to see what the Americans would say, and they ended up embarrassing the United States because later on, after much interrogation and so forth, Powers came out and apologized and confessed. So that made him look poor in the American media, as they labeled him as a coward. And so he was really savaged while he was imprisoned. Now, Powers was supposed to take a suicide pill, but he declined to do that, and a lot of people gave him grief over that, but surprisingly, the Russians actually seemed to respect his decision to not do that. I think Khrushchev said some quote of, as in, living things want to go on living. During his trial in Russia, or the Soviet Union, he was convicted and sentenced to 10 years confinement. He was going to spend 3 years in prison and 7 years doing hard labor. And he served about a year and a half of that before President Kennedy agreed to a hostage exchange with the Soviet Union. So once he was back in the United States, he received a pretty chilly reception because a lot of people still had a grudge against him for what his perceived slights were, and that he didn't commit hara-kiri, I guess, for lack of a better word. And so they kind of resented him for that. But once he was interviewed by the Senate committee, and his story got out a little bit more that he wasn't nearly as forthcoming as originally thought, he began to be perceived as a hero, and rightfully so. So he went on after that. He ended up drawing praise for that, and his reputation, as I said earlier, rebounded. He eventually became a helicopter news reporter in Los Angeles, and unfortunately that's how he lost his life. His helicopter crashed in 1977 and ended his life at a relatively young age. The movie Bridge of Spies, starring Tom Hanks, was inspired by this whole incident, and a really good movie. I watched it a couple years ago. Really enjoyed that, so I highly recommend it. He was awarded the Silver Star in 2012, of course, posthumously, but Francis Gary Powers went from zero to hero. You don't see too many people come back like that, but he's now perceived correctly as an American hero. Sticking with August 17th, in 1786, Davy Crockett was born in Limestone, Tennessee, and he was a frontiersman, a soldier, a politician, and he represented Tennessee in the United States Congress, and he became a folk hero during his lifetime for his service in the military, and also for his political speeches and his actions. And he actually, of course, his legend expanded even after his death at the Alamo. Crockett was quite a fan of himself, I guess, for lack of a better word, because he wrote his own autobiography, and I want to say he's wrote 2 or 3 during his lifetime of himself. And so he did vehemently oppose Andrew Jackson's 1830 Indian Removal Act, which of course led to the Trail of Tears and all kinds of terrible outcomes. But his opposition to that ended up being very unpopular in his district, so he was voted out of office after his opposition to that. Then he later re-won his office and then lost it again, and after that loss, he was reported to have famously said, "I told the people of my district that I would serve them as faithfully as I had done, but if not, they might as well go to hell, and I would go to Texas." And eventually that's where he went. He went to Texas and settled down there, and that is when the Alamo came out, and he perished on March 6th, 1836, at the age of 49. But his reputation, of course, expanded mightily after that. He became quite the folk hero, and as a lot of people will recall, there was a television series about him, and he just, in the mid-1900s, he became a hero once again, of course, especially with the coonskin cap. I even had one of those, as a matter of fact, but I wasn't around in that time, but I did get a coonskin cap one time in Pigeon Forge. Ended up losing it at Porpoise Island, and got back and redeemed it somehow. Yeah, I don't know how I got off topic. Anyway, that's the story of Davy Crockett. Not the story of he has nothing to do with Porpoise Island. Nothing. I don't know why I brought that story up. I missed that coonskin cap, though. It's quite. I remember buying that, and I just love that thing. Anyway, moving on. August 19th, 1782, in Robertson County, Kentucky, or what is now Robertson County, Kentucky. It was then part of Virginia. The Battle of Blue Licks took place, and it was one of the last battles of the Revolutionary War. 50 British loyalists, along with 300 American Indians, ambushed 182 Kentucky militiamen. And what would be the last victory for the British loyalists during the Revolutionary War? A handful of Indian scouts were seen, and this kind of tripped up the Kentuckians. When they saw this, they thought, well, I wonder what's going on here. And they called a council, and believe it or not, Daniel Boone was part of this council, and he was pretty skeptical. He thought that there were too many signs that the Indians left, and he thought that they're smarter than that. They wouldn't leave these around, that he thought they may be getting set up for an ambush. But another man by the name of Hugh McGarry vehemently disagreed And Garry was known for having quite the hot temper and being a hot-headed man. He rose up and declared that he was going to go attack them, and basically said anybody that didn't come with him was a coward. So all the men rallied behind him. They went into battle, and Daniel Boone lagged behind quite a bit. Well, what do you know? McGarry and the other men were caught up in an ambush, and then as they were retreating, word got back to Boone, and Boone started to retreat with his men, and unfortunately his son Israel was shot in the neck about that time, and he fell dead. So Daniel Boone retreated, and that is the Battle of Blue Licks, a loss for the United States during that time, or the would-be United States. And all 7 Kentuckians were killed and 10 were wounded. So Battle of Blue Licks, not a highlight of the Revolutionary War, but an event that happened nonetheless. Finally, August 22nd, 1955, in Spring City, Tennessee, an 140-car freight train plowed into a school bus that had about 50 children on board, and it ended up killing 11 of those children and injuring all the others. And the bus driver basically ignored a crossing signal and tried to pull out, and was drilled by that train, which led to a lot of laws being changed, limiting the ability of bus drivers to cross during those times, and unfortunately led to the death of, like I said, 11 children between the ages of 6 to 12. So quite the tragedy, and quite a terrible way to end this week. Trying to think if I can think of a joke or something to lighten the mood, because that's the last thing I want to think about. Nothing's coming to me. Sorry. See y'all again next weekend. It will be a better week. Took a sneak preview, so it doesn't end on such a bad note. At least you can hang in there for that. Give it 7 days. Thanks.